Hey listeners, powered up by Mazer Group, this is the Turnin Dirt podcast. I'm your host, John Mazer. Hi listeners, welcome back from a lovely summer break. It's good to be back, but more importantly, it's good to be back because we have Mr. Shawn Milligan in the studio. Shawn, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Where is Shawn working right now?
I work for RBC Dominion Securities. We're the investment wealth management division of RBC.
How long have you been there?
36 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, so right into it then.
Yeah, I started right after the crash of 87. It was a good time to start. People thought I was crazy, but I thought, well, what's to lose? I was 23 years old and had nothing to lose, living at home still, and turned out to be a good decision.
Nice. The only reason I know about the crash of 87, I think it's the same one, is because Wolf of Wall Street.
Yeah.
That's the same one, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. So yeah, I know a little bit of history there.
I didn't even know there was a crash of 87.
Yes. Yep. It was Black Monday, as they call it, I think. Yeah. So yeah, you were a witness to all of that.
Seen it all.
Yeah. So were you involved in finance when that happened?
Yeah, absolutely. I was a full investment advisor at the time. The company I worked for was called Pemberton Houston Willoughby, and we were the largest investment advisory firm west of Winnipeg.
Oh, wow.
And the RBC bought us in 1989. It was a good merger.
Yeah. Yeah. They probably got it for a deal.
At the time, it was.
Yeah. Yeah. Goodbye.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
Great buy.
Right on. So within your position at RBC, what exposure do you have to the ag industry, Shawn?
It's huge. Like that's a big part of my clientele, actually. So we're wealth managers, and financial planning is our game. And we basically, most of our clients, I would say, good 60% would be farming.
Okay.
When I started in 87, January of 88 is the first start date for me, but I was given a territory because a lot of the guys quit. 87 wiped out a lot of guys, so they just said, I can't do this. So they moved on. I put my hand up and said, I'll take the Swift Current area because that's where I was born. And so I thought, we got some commonality. And I went out there knocking doors and networking and working with lawyers and accounting firms and stuff to see if I could help people out. And lo and behold, a lot of them were farmers. And my grandpa was a farmer in Pipestone, Manitoba.
No kidding.
Yeah. So we, as kids, we always went there for all of our holidays and helped. My dad would help with the harvest, and my mom was cooking up meals for the farm hands and everything else. So I always loved the farm community and the attitude that went with it. And so I kind of targeted the farmer client, which is why we have so many. Yeah,
and yet obviously the experience or the exposure to farming at a young age. So that was your grandfather?
Yeah.
And so was he a grain farmer, and did he have some livestock?
He was a grain farmer, but interestingly enough, I still go to the Farm Progress Show because way back when, agribition, my grandpa used to sell weigh scales, Milligan Enterprises, and he sold weigh scales for weighing cattle, even though he didn't have cattle. But
kidding.
He was an inventor of sorts. And he invented a weigh scale that was pretty popular for a while there.
Yeah.
And,
is it still around?
I don't think it is anymore. No. But it was pretty cool at the time as kids going there and seeing his display. And, we were pretty proud of him.
Oh, no kidding. Right on. So you mentioned, harvest, we're in it right now. Obviously one of the crucial times of the year. If you get the chance to get in a combine, I don't know if you feel the same way I do, but very therapeutic. I'm not a radio guy in the cab, but there's just something about seeing that crop roll into the combine and then eventually into the hopper. And so, did you spend any summers out at the farm, or was it just strictly a holiday season?
All the time. In fact, my dad's gone now for the last 10 years. He passed away. He worked for SAS Power for 37 years, and I think he was meant to be a farmer, but the farm wasn't big enough for them. So he moved on and became a lineman with SAS Power. Yep. Moved his way up to the top. But as kids, all of our holidays were in Pipestone, Manitoba, because my grandpa wanted my dad to help him. So we were always around for all aspects of the farming community.
Gotcha. And obviously that led you up to, the knowing the customer base. And as you said, you kind of related to them when you took over that Swift Current area. Mm-hmm. So when you started knocking on farmers' doors in 87, what was predominantly kind of the business you were doing with them?
Most of it was, at that time, investing in the market was a novelty, really, if anything. People were pretty much just savers. They had money in GICs and just investment savings accounts or bank accounts, T-bills. So at that time, it was more of an educational thing. We were educating clients on how they could invest their money outside of just having it directly, in a bank account.
Right.
And so,
Yeah.
And Saskatchewan at the time was going through an interesting time where we were privatizing. So over the next 5-10 years, we privatized Potash Corporation, which is now Nutrien, Cameco, several. And so the firm I was with, we were part of a lot of the underwritings of those issues. And so that gave us something to talk about.
Sure.
We'd talk to the clients. We'd explain to them what they were, why it's a good investment. And again, a lot of them, like look at Cameco now, it's just amazing.
Oh, yeah, it's massive, yeah.
Nutrien, two of the biggest companies in the world in their industries.
Sure, So good avenues, to get, differentiating there for your clients, that's for sure. So that's 87. You're starting to get into what you just mentioned there. Where was there a memorable shift in the business that you were doing? As you said, I can't repeat all of them, but like stocks, that sort of stuff was in 87. A shift in your business personally, like not just, selling those kind of things, but, on the management side of things?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think the real shift probably started just over 20 years ago where interest rates started to decline. And of course, we know in COVID, they went to basically zero.
Yeah.
And people were starting to wonder, well, what can I do with my money? I'm not keeping up with inflation. And because inflation, as you know, in your industry, everything goes up. And, if you don't keep up with inflation, you're losing money.
That's right.
It doesn't matter if it's sitting in a tin can, it's still there, but it's not worth as much. So clients started to, through our education and working with people and getting them to understand that there was other ways to invest. So as interest rates came down 20 years ago, more and more we were of use, I guess, and people started to see what value we brought to the table.
Right.
And helping them design portfolios and estate planning and all the things that we do.
Gotcha. So I'm going to take a moment to date ourselves right here. You just said about 20 years ago. That's like 2004. Yeah. In like 3 months, we'll be able to say the year 2000 was 25 years ago.
It's wild.
Yeah, I know.
I'm so old. I graduated in 2000.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's, I'm dating myself there. I don't care. I'm having a ball at life. So, life marches on. You mentioned estate planning. Obviously, you don't want to get deep into clients' numbers or anything like that. But what's a shift that you've seen in estate planning? And let's talk about the last 5 years. I know, even with our move to Saskatchewan, Shawn, the farm size alone was something big for us. Average farm in Manitoba anywhere from 3,500 to 5,000-6,000, somewhere around there. 10,000, you're a big farm, whereas here, 20, 30,000 acres, there is a lot of them. And we're talking, the bigger ones, 70, 80, 900,000 acres. So, as far as estate planning goes, what question do I want to ask here? Because, just on the farm sizes alone, it was a huge shift for us. And obviously that's where the industry is going too right now. So, are you seeing more from an estate planning side? Are you seeing more like generational planning, or are you seeing more planning as kind of a sell-off, or is it kind of a mixture of everything?
I think because of a lot of the tax rules favor, the handoff to the next generation.
Yeah.
Farmers are in a pretty good position in that regard. A lot of businesses aren't quite as lucky that way. So what we've seen is, because of the size of the farms and the amount of money involved, the estate planning is it's gigantic for us. That's where we spend most of our day, is organizing the meetings. We work with the lawyers, we work with their accountants. So it's all hands on deck.
Yeah.
So we sit down, each client and each family is different. Some have cattle, some don't. Some are, they basically just straight grain. Some are all multi-different types of crops and they're trying different things. But the sizes of these estates now compared to what they used to be, it's huge business. So therefore, we're very valuable in that process. It's not something that AI is going to take over. It really isn't.
That's right. Yeah.
It just isn't. There's too much involved. And when we work hand in hand with the accountants and the lawyers, the clients are getting a proper assessment on what they have in front of them for tax liability.
Yep.
Think about this. You would know it better than anyone, but the equipment that they have is worth more than what the farmers were worth years and years ago.
It's crazy.
It's
yeah.
amazing, right?
Yeah.
So there's so much involved. So that's what we spend most of our time with, is knowing the clients, finding out the dynamic of the family. Like one kid's in Calgary that's in the oil patch, the other one farms. They're going to take over the farm. How do we make this fair? So we use a lot of things like life insurance is very popular, corporate-owned insurance, a lot of different strategies that are really integral in what we do.
Yeah, so and like in the whole generational shift, like I mean, obviously we love seeing young farmers or young adults getting into farming. You know, we're one of the only industries, I'm sure there's other industries out there, but that I'm exposed to where our customer base is shrinking, literally, because the size of the farms are going up now. The size of the equipment is going up, and respectively to the size of the farms. But we're always wanting new and young talent to get into the industry. Do you find, like again, let's take the last 5 years, that you're seeing more sell-offs in estate planning than you are actually, even with the tax break on passing it down? Are you seeing more sell-offs, or is it kind of is still a steady set amount for generational kind of handoff as opposed to sell-offs?
What my experience with my clients is that we're seeing a lot more of the handoff to the next generation.
Yep.
And we're seeing, what's interesting is we are seeing the kid that was successful in Vancouver coming back farming because they can see the value in where this is going. Like, where's the puck going? They can see that this is big business. That's going to get nothing but bigger. And of course, it's a scale thing. So if you have the scale and there's less debt involved, they can make things work. Starting a new farm, as you probably know, is really very difficult. You probably need about $7 million just to get going. And so, you know, what we're seeing is a lot of families are reeling back their kids. They're bringing them back to Saskatchewan and saying, you guys, like, we don't want to just sell this to the neighbor. Let's figure this out.
Because it's gone once that happens. Like, and they're not. You can't make more land. I mean, sure, you can clear out, section of bush here and there, but I mean, there is no more land that can be produced. So again, it's great to see kids coming back to.
So, in your guys' experience, like what kind of decisions go into whether someone's going to say, you know what, I will take on this family farm, versus, you know what, it may be in my best interest to liquidate this land and this asset and take the money and run. Like, what kind of considerations really go into it? Is it, am I passionate about it or not, or is it, I don't think I can run a farm. I don't have the intellectual capital here. Or, you know, like what have you seen?
Yeah, sometimes what we'll see is if there aren't kids that want to take over, the family might say, well, we still want to keep the land, and they'll rent the land. They'll just rent it. And there's a bit of a trick to that, because if you rent it for too long, then you give up some of the capital gains exemption and some of these things that are, you know, to the benefit of the owner. But we are seeing a little bit of that. But most times we're seeing one of the family members putting their hand up, or several, saying, we want to take it over. That's mostly what we're seeing.
And I believe, to add on to Sean's point, what you said, Producer Jay, is it starts with the passion. Like, if you want to be in the farm, it starts with the passion to operate the farm. It's a wonderful career. It's a wonderful life, for a family to raise a family on. But the passion has to be there. From what you're saying, from an intellectual standpoint, like, I mean, there's people around that can help you run a farm. Plus, I mean, the fact that the family has owned one, you're going to have some support there from the family. But yeah, the passion to run a farm and own a farm has to come first. Your point on maybe not having that next generation interested in running the farm and just renting the land. Going back to the point that we're not making any more land, but a side note, we're doing some family planning of ourselves just in the immediate Mazer family. And then, the question was asked, Pops, okay, let's take Mazer Group and we have a family farm. If something were to happen to you, Pops, God forbid, what do you see happening to the farm? And it was, do not sell the farm. Like, do not sell that farm. Whatever it is that you want to do with it, whether you rent it out, because exactly what you said, like, he just sees the value in that. I mean, obviously he's been in it for 70 plus years, right? So, but yeah, don't sell the farm. Yeah.
I see a lot of things affecting the agriculture industry, and we've touched on before this episode here, but first thing is, land in general is becoming so valuable. And I don't know much about it, but I hear all these stories about big companies buying up land. They want properties, they want housing, they want to own this market. So that's only showing where, we've had a couple hundred years in Saskatchewan of people buying up land.
Yep.
As that happens more, the value goes up. So giving away that asset that we know is going to increase, probably not a smart move. Second thing is like when I used to think about farming, I used to think of like being out in the sun all day with like a hand hoe, just like taking down the wheat and baling it and putting it over my shoulder and walking it a kilometer to the barn.
Yeah.
You know, like I know that sounds ridiculous,
but it's not ridiculous.
But now,
it's
like
not
we said, there's
ridiculous.
kind of sexiness to it.
100%.
You can sit in a combine and you can have all this data in front of you and kind of it's more intellectual than that labor intensive that we've been sold our whole lives about farming.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to make people go, you know what, I think it's the industry of the future, especially in Saskatchewan. If it isn't already, maybe it is already.
Yeah. I mean, obviously it's a huge part of our economy, but I mean, you're exactly right. And I mentioned that, I spoke on that just before we started here, but farming, and the first time ever, I believe, is sexy now. Like, it is a massive industry. The equipment's big. It's awesome. It's like getting into a Cadillac or a very nice car when you get in these cabs. They're all pressurized and air conditioned. The data that you touched on, what these machines are capable of, like, it's allowing the next generation that maybe isn't so keen on a lot of labor-intensive jobs to get involved, and whether they work in seasonal work for a farm, or if they have the opportunity that has a family that owns a farm to get involved. So, it's just awesome.
Yeah.
Farming's just awesome.
It is like we have a cabin out at Katepwa. It's a 45-minute drive from Emerald Park where I live, and half my excitement driving to the cabin is looking at what's going on in the fields.
Yep.
My wife, actually, Whitney, she loves it too. Like, well, when we take that turn at Indian Head and we see all that beautiful yellow machinery.
Yes. So gorgeous, isn't it?
They're just gleaming in the sunshine, taking down, there's like 10 of them in a row, whipping down a crop. It's like, wow, that is amazing to watch. Like flat, bald prairie that is, it's pretty special.
Yep.
Not to mention in the spring to see the canola just shining in the sun. Oh my gosh, I love that so much.
It's a great gauge for what part of the summer, I guess the warm months that you're in. It's exactly what you said, Shawn, is like just seeing, like in the fall time, once sowing is done and planting is done, just the barren black fields, but eventually they start to get that little peach fuzz where the crop is starting to merge. You're in that June, like late June getting into early July, and then it grows, it's nice and green, and then all of a sudden you get, very early this year, I might add, we were probably first, second week of August when we started seeing combines hit the field, but it's the sign of fall, sign of harvest. But I love it because it's go time. As you see, you go by those fields with 10 combines in it. It's a sight to see, like a big sight to see.
Yeah. And
going back to your labor intensive, the back in the old days, it was combines with no cabs on them. So if you're comparing that, it's not even a comparison to what farming is right now.
Yeah. If you look at the orthopedic surgeons and ask them about some of their clients, it's the old farmers who sat on steel seats, and had, or, God forbid, skin cancer from not having any protection.
Yeah.
That's changed obviously a lot. You were asking earlier about jumping into a combine. I've had the privilege. My area manager is a farmer, even though he's a finance guy. His family farm in Sedley, and he's taken me on the combine for a ride or two, and I just can't believe how much fun that is.
Yeah.
It's just cool. The technology and just all of it's, like you say, sexy. I actually love going to the Farm Progress Show just to see what's going on. It's so neat to see the advancement in technology. Yeah,
the latest and greatest in the equipment, and it's almost it's mind blowing to sit in the cab of a new combine. And if you're rolling along with a 45-foot head and at 4.5, 5 mile an hour, that thing is moving fast, and the amount of crop these kind of things are taking in, it's just how is it handling it in there? Yeah. But it does. And New Holland handles it the best, I might add. So.
It works.
Shawn, I got a question for you. You obviously get to hear a lot about the seasons that farmers go through, the good seasons, the bad seasons. Are they protected by crop insurance? Are they not? How does that play a role in how you advise them, and how tricky is it to navigate the fact that we live in the agriculture mecca of the world, and you're dealing with clients that have their life invested into this? How do you navigate those ups and downs with them?
It's really quite easy, actually. And I'll tell you why. My favorite clients, and we have a very large book of business, but my favorite clients are the farmers. And the reason is they're great business people, and they understand long term. Like where a lot of people, long-term is 30 days. Farmers are the best because they understand long-term better than anyone. They understand risk. They understand what it takes to have blood, sweat, and tears. And they're great clients as a result. So when I talk to them about, okay, the long-term plan, the transitioning of the property to the family and doing a financial plan and all these things, they engage immediately. And they make very quick decisions too. And so it's great. Like I love dealing with farmers because they're down to earth, hardworking, salt of the earth people, and they understand risk and they want to keep their land. Like they'll do whatever it takes. And that's why we do use a lot of insurance and things like that to help with that, because the tax liabilities are huge. And so
sorry, what do you mean by tax liabilities?
Well, the unrealized gains on, like, when you think about it, when I first started, a farm was worth, if it was $1 million at that time, it was a big farm. Now it's like, when we do our financial plans, a lot of, 20, 30, $40 million operations. And with that, because of that growth, there's a lot of unrealized capital gains and because they've done so well. Mm. So that at some point, someone's going to pay some taxes. And so if you have one family member that doesn't want to farm, but one kid does, you got to figure out how to make that equal, because there is going to be, on the last person's death, like say a husband-wife team, or if they're incorporated, it can go on a long time, but the shareholders are involved. There's going to be some taxes. There's going to be some liabilities that need to be dealt with. And so that's where the planning.
I get you. So you want to mitigate the amount of tax a client has to pay by making smart, meaningful decisions and planning that out over a long period of time. Absolutely. And not getting your clients caught off guard with, by the way, you got $29 million of capital gains you got to pay taxes on.
Yeah. The clients that do the best have good people. Like they'll have a good lawyer, they'll have a good accountant, they get good advice. And so they make good decisions, and they make informed decisions. And so those are the saying, the rich get richer. A lot of times it's just because they have good advice around them, and they can afford to make those decisions too, though, in fairness.
Yeah, big part of it.
Yeah.
Shawn, is there anything that's keeping you up at night these days, like when it comes to agriculture? Or your business, sorry.
Well, agriculture, no. I mean, I think the future in agriculture is unbelievable. In fact, if you look at, and again, a little bit of a RBC thing, RBC's investing a lot of money in agriculture as far as like helping our agriculture clients, because they can see where the puck's going for sure. And we have a couple of different pieces that we've done in regards to AI and how the farming community is going to change. And we're very, very excited about it. What we've done in Canada, in my opinion, we probably could do a lot better job in promoting our farmers and saying how good they are.
Amen.
Because we're the best in the world.
100%.
And no one says it.
100%. You took the words out of my mouth. We got the best in the world here.
We do. We're the best. Yeah. And that's the thing we need to do, is get that, like, other places that are trying to make us sound like we're bad, we have to turn that around and say, okay, prove it to us why we're bad, because we're not. We're really good.
Yeah.
We're very efficient. The farms are getting more efficient. They're not wasteful, because why would you want to be wasteful in a business like farming? You want to be.
It deals with yield.
Yeah, you want to be the most efficient.
Be wasteful.
Like the accountants that we work with, you should see the in-depth analysis of the cost accounting. It's unbelievable. They have it down to the acre. Like when we sit down with our clients, with the accountants, and they go through everything, they know to the penny almost what they spent per acre last year.
Yeah. Yep.
It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
And so, of course, all the family in the room and us sitting there with them are figuring, okay, well, how can we even make it even better? So, like, that's the whole point. In Canada, we're good farmers. And that's something that needs to be promoted more.
Yeah. That's what we're trying to do here.
Yeah.
Jay and I taking over the world.
100%.
Trying to pursue the world.
I think government and certain infrastructure needs to promote agriculture. But I also think I've noticed that farmers are humble to a fault. They want to keep their numbers hidden. They want to keep their size hidden, because there's this weird feeling of, if you're too big, you're now a corporation. You're not a grassroots farmer. And I could be making this up, but that's my tone. So I think, we got to do a better job with policy to maybe promote it, especially in schools for careers and stuff like we've talked about.
Yep.
But man, the farmers got to start saying, let me show you what farming is really like.
Yeah.
Because 2 years ago, I thought it was a guy baling and carrying it and sweating in the sun. I didn't really think that, but it
No,
wasn't
I
far
get-
off. I
yeah,
didn't know what
yeah,
to think.
Yeah. No, I can bring a story up for you about producer Jay real quick. Because he's learning as we go here in every episode. I'm always in a learning phase because you hear things every day. But producer Jay, God bless his heart, we were on the topic, and it was about a year ago of sprayers. And so, we're talking about herbicides, pesticides, and the rounds that they do. And, and I said, well, you can, put all the chemical on you want, but if the sun don't shine and it doesn't rain, you're not going to grow a crop. And Jay, again, bless his heart, said, well, aren't you watering the crop with the sprayers?
My bad.
And it's not usually, and it was an honest amateur, question, because he thought just the sprayers were watering the crop. So that's how you learn.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's how you learn. It's all big, sexy equipment. On the topic of land acquisitions, changing hands, that sort of thing, do you deal with any of the big entities? I know around here, Toronto Teachers Pension Fund is a big one of acquiring land. Do you deal in any of that, Shawn?
I personally don't, but
No.
we have a lot of large corporate farms, but
Yep.
they're not what you're speaking of. No,
Right.
maybe there's colleagues of mine that do, but I personally don't know.
Right. Yeah. On the corporate farm side, it's a wonderful thing. And I mean, I love seeing it because I love seeing big farms, and, it's a part of the growth of farming and, part of making it sexy. Do you deal in planning for any of those big corporate farms? Like, I mean, when we're talking 100,000 acres.
Yeah, we actually are involved with a few things. As we are speaking, we have a few clients that are at the cusp of like merging with others and coming even bigger than they are, and
Yep.
that's exciting.
Yes.
But there's a lot to it.
Yep.
We're seeing a lot more of it.
Yep.
The thing that we're also seeing, and personally, like I have clients that if you said earlier, what do clients maybe go to bed at night and worry a bit, is when again, I'm not knocking a Hutterite colony.
No, not at all.
But
No,
Hutterite
no.
colonies are significant operators.
Yes,
and
they are.
When
Yep.
they come into someone's area, they're there to acquire lots
Yep.
of land, so
Yep.
it pops up the prices a bit, and
Yep.
and that is for some of our clients, they get a little bit concerned about that. But
Yep.
the Hutterites are great clients of many people. But,
Yes. Yep.
including our firm.
Yep.
But that's one area that I see of interest. So it would be interesting to see 100 years from now, who all owns the land.
Yes.
You
Yeah.
know?
And I'm a firm believer, and I think you are too, that there are always going to be the family farms around, but like perhaps the family farms are going to start looking like corporate farms, still the families running it, but yeah, just the acquisition of more land here, more land there, that, and with the equipment getting as big as it is. Like, I mean, a family has the ability to farm bigger acres now, more acres.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's all part and parcel to the family farm sticking around. In your business, do you see fresh, brand new farmers trying to start?
Not very often.
No.
To be honest with you.
Yeah.
We just don't see it.
Yeah.
I don't anyway.
Yeah.
Maybe someone else has, but I haven't seen very much of that.
Yeah.
It's very difficult.
Yeah.
In fact, some of the clients that we deal with that aren't really large, their biggest challenge is like if there's two kids that want to farm, figuring out how that could work.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
a bit more difficult.
Especially if they're button heads too,
Yeah.
like doing the brother thing.
Yeah.
Is that because the income of one farm may only provide for one family? So
Yeah.
if they have two kids, they're like, how
How do we make
are they
this
both
work?
going to live
Yeah.
off this?
And
Or-
remember, the mom and dad, they want to get some of their money out, right? So they can't just give it to them for free. It's part of their estate planning and their retirement planning. And so, to try to make that work, sometime if it's not a large enough scale, it can be a little bit more dicey, a little bit more tricky. Not that you can't do it, but it's more challenging.
So you probably see that not all the time, but situations where there is a 2-son mom and pa operation, and mom and pa want a little, they want to collect a few marbles. You're probably seeing some of that where there's it's not a startup per se, but we're buying the farm off mom and dad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
There's definitely lots of that.
yeah, good stuff.
They want the lifestyle. They want but if there's not enough acres to go around, it can be a little bit more challenging.
Yeah,
A lot of our clients, thankfully, are not in that position, but we
Right.
do have some for sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Is there any? Obviously, no names, but I mean, like, is there one? Should I say generational handoff that were just like this, like
Yeah.
through the whole process, and like you got to give us an idea of what size of the farm it was and kind of what direction they were going in.
Wait, there's one case, and I won't say where, but they ended up just selling the farm.
Okay, that's what it came down to.
Yeah.
So there was kids in the family that wanted to run it,
Yeah.
and there was others that wanted to go out.
The family said, let's just sell it. And, you know, and it's sad because there was a lot of tax, and that was at a time where land has gone up exponentially since.
Yep.
So they left a lot on the table. And, I mean, that was the decision they made. It's almost like some of our regular clients that have a family cabin. They'll end up just selling the cabin instead of seeing the bickering.
Right.
And it's too bad because,
Yep.
you know, a lot of these cabins are nice and they want to keep them in the family. But if you have the bickering, it can be an issue.
Yep.
Litigation on estates is on the rise, right? Because there's so much more involved, and so much more money involved that people are starting to challenge these things. So it's the tight families are the ones that do the best.
Yeah.
You know? And so, you know, and being transparent, like, you know, from a long way back, being upfront with your kids and letting them know what the plans are.
Yeah.
So a lot of our meetings will include the kids if they are willing to come in. If the parents are willing to include the kids, we suggest that they do.
Yeah.
Like, okay, let's be an open book here. What are you guys planning?
Yeah.
What do you want to do? Because, you know, it's better for them to know than to be surprised. Like in the movies, they open up the will. Here's
I
It's an
bequeath.
announcement.
Yeah,
in
I
the-
bequeath this camera to.
It's way better to be upfront and transparent. And again, that's what the most successful farm operators do.
Yeah.
They do. They get an open book open with the family.
Yeah.
So my mom was a banker for 35 years, not a financial advisor, but or wealth planning, but she was, you know, in the banking industry. And she told me, she said, Jim, I've seen bankruptcies, I've seen divorces, I've seen everything under the sun. She said, I've never seen anything tear apart a family more than inheritance
I'll bet.
or estates
Oh, I'll bet.
in her office. And I was a little surprised on that. It's not what I would have predicted, but.
Well, you know, especially, you know, going to your point where it's not planned, then everybody in the family has got a different idea of what's happening, right? So now we're talking about expectations, and as soon as those aren't met, I mean, everybody goes off the rocker. And then if you've got different expectations for everybody, then I can see it turning into chaos.
Yeah.
And really unfortunate if you get into a position like you said, Shawn, where, you know, you've got some, when dealing with farmland and, you know, the next generation and handing it down, you've got some willing kids that want to keep the farm going. Probably nothing more than the parents want to see too.
Mm-hmm.
And they just can't come to an agreement where it's like, we can't make it work.
Well, that's a good segue. We've spent a lot of time and money in investing and educating our clients on what they can do. And so one of our divisions is Royal Trust. And so Royal Trust now is so busy becoming corporate executors. So that's something that we recommend is that clients, instead of naming the oldest child, like that's a lot to put on them to say, hey, I want you to be the executor of this $20 million operation and do things fairly with the other 4 kids. Well, hey, man, if you want to see a family get broken up,
Torn apart,
So what a lot of our clients will suggest, and when we meet with the lawyer and the accountants and do the whole team thing is, we will suggest that they consider Royal Trust as a corporate executor. And so they basically take the will that was written up with everybody on board, but they execute to the word of that will. And then you don't have the pressure on the oldest child having to feel like, oh my God, I didn't do it right, or this is so stressful, and the wife gets mad at him, or whatever it is. Vice versa. But the Royal Trust corporate executor and also corporate power of attorney. So we have a lot of these things that, on my website, we have one area that's all about farm, estate planning, et cetera. But we also have one area where we have David Chilton, the wealthy barber, speaking about these subjects about, why would you ever want to name a family member as the executor? You're just asking for trouble.
Oh, he's 100% against it.
Just says, why would you?
Yeah.
And so a lot of times our clients will encourage them in our all of our discovery meetings that they consider these things. We can't tell them to do it.
No.
But we'll suggest it strongly that they consider it.
Yeah. And a smart idea. And then it's just like, as you said, it just takes the pressure off, whether it's the oldest kid or, because the numbers, as you said again, Shawn, that we're dealing with now is just like, and you tear that apart, and then all of a sudden you're in a situation where, yes, you have to sell off, but now you're sending half of it to Ottawa or whatever with capital gains. Like, it's so sad. Yeah.
Well, and my wife comes from a German family. They're farmers in Germany.
Yeah.
Now that generation's slowly disappearing, but when they would come to Saskatchewan and see their ancestors' farms, they would say, okay, what's going on here? Like, how come we can see for 1,000 miles?
Literally.
And you own this? So they
Still
would
way
just
over
be-
there.
Yeah.
But that's that whole thing. Like the average, imagine what a quarter section in Germany's worth and
Oh
what
my
it's
God.
worth in Saskatchewan.
Yeah.
And yet we think our prices are high. No, they're high, but they're going higher. You
Yeah.
know, it's like you say, you don't make new land. It's a very challenging thing, but the future for farming, in my opinion, the next 10, 20, 30 years is just going to be amazing. Like
Yeah.
it's really fun to be part of it.
Yes, exciting stuff. You mentioned AI before, and that it's funny because in your business, I hold true to our business as well, and our farmers, in that there will always be a human component in farming, right? As in your business, right? So I'm excited about the future. We've got obviously a lot of things coming with technology, and it's just, I don't think the equipment's going to get any bigger because it's already massive as it is. But there's just good things coming.
Mm-hmm.
Really good things coming.
Yeah, I'm ready for it.
You're ready for it.
Well, in Saskatchewan,
I'll be the one
we're fortunate.
irrigating.
Yeah.
I was having a meeting today with a guy from Vancouver, and he said to me, he goes, well, I was here this summer on my last outing. I decided to drive up to Prince Albert to go to Waskesiu. He goes, we hit that tree line up there. He goes, I didn't know you guys had trees like that. And I said, well, in fact, that's what most of the province is, the Canadian Shield and trees. But he was just blown away because he thought all of Saskatchewan was just like prairie dirt,
Yeah.
And I said, yeah, I know, but that's why our land is so good, because the glaciers, what they did was they created this perfect playing field and the most fertile land in the world. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. We've got, I'm sure, I don't know what the ecosystem is, whether it's boreal forests or woodlands, but there is that definite line, that you hit, and it's nice to have that diversity, though. You can't really do much.
I wonder what our population is. Like, I'm guessing it's like 85% of our population is in the bottom 1/3 of our geography.
I'll bet it's more. I'll bet it's more than that. Yeah.
Yeah.
You find out?
Well, I think the whole of all of Canada, I think 85% of the population is 150 miles from the U.S. border.
Fair enough. Yeah. So I guess it's not even isolated to our province.
Yeah.
Nice. Saskatchewan. Well, it's a great, great province, great, and we love the guy living out here. I know the Markison family did a wonderful job.
Yes, they did.
Before you guys took over.
Great people.
And I know Derek personally, nice guy, good family. And when you guys took over, I was like, who is this Mazer Group? And then I did my homework, and you guys are definitely turning dirt, man. And we're glad to have you as a corporate citizen in this area. You guys are well respected, and it's great to have you.
Thank you very, very much for that, Shawn. Yeah, it's good to be here. And again, it's with Mazer Group, evolving in Manitoba, and the learning curve coming out to Saskatchewan. It's just so it's home out here, and it was so good for Mazer Group. It was so good for me and my family personally. It was good for the community. We when we moved here, when we literally changed the signs and the floor mats over of February 1st of 2019, every single person in the building stayed. We honored their years of service, that sort of thing. But with the leadership of the Markison, Hartley and the boys, they created a true family-owned and operated business here. They had empathy for the farmers, which is what we have, and that's what it takes in our days now to run a successful dealership, is to empathize with the farmers and act with them, be there when you need them, and treat them as such that you treat yourself in a situation where you're running a farm. They did that very well, and we're happy to be here and take that legacy on. So Hartley does come by every now and then with a box of ice cream for everybody in the back. It was actually put in the finalizing papers that he is required during the summer to show up at least once with ice cream. So I'll let you guys know when that happens.
Yeah, I'd like to be here.
Well, when I first came into your beautiful spot here, I asked you about do you live here?
Yes.
And the reason I asked that question, because that matters to me.
Yep.
It really does. And I was so happy when you said, yeah, I do. And I was like, okay, well, that's great, because that's what makes a good family business, is that you've got skin in the game, and you understand the community, and you're part of it, and you see what's going on.
Yep. And with that, Shawn, I'll get a little deep with you here. I got some great experience, and I loved working in Manitoba. Obviously, this is, that's where Brandon is where Mazer Group, was created and evolved into what it is today. I was Bob's son there, though. it's my dad's Bob, like, so there is not a bad shadow to be under, but I mean, like, he is a very, very well-respected farmer, implement dealer, love him to death, obviously. But you want to find yourself. And that's exactly what happened to me when I came out here. And I think that had a lot to do with how welcoming not only the community was, the people in the building here, and the farmers. Yeah. Farmers are Saskatchewan farmers, all farmers are, but Saskatchewan farmers, they're such great people. And it allowed me to find John, and you got me for good now.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. Well, I'm kind of going through something like that myself. My senior associate's name's Brett Burney. He's a very experienced financial planner. And then my son Eamon joined our team, and he's a chartered financial analyst. And of course, there's a lot of pressure on him because the old man and all that stuff. But I mean, I'm trying not to be biased, but just like your dad must feel pretty proud of you, I'm pretty proud of him. He's done a great job, and I have no issues and worries about that. He's going to outwork me and outsmart me, without a doubt. So
and nice working side by side.
It really is.
Yeah,
it's just like a family farm. I feel it's nice to have some family involved, and I'm proud of that. Yeah.
Have you talked to a wealth advisor yet on, like transition plans?
Actually, we do all the time. Yeah. My twin daughters are only in grade 12 and they're 17. So I've got a little ways ahead before I do that. But we do talk about it. Actually, I do put my money where my mouth is. We talk about it all the time.
It's very healthy, and it gets the younger generations and the kids thinking about, like, it is good, obviously you want to let their, dreams run wild and, whatever they'd like to do. And if they have dreams and aspirations, run after them. But, like, obviously to get that, thought in their head about this is what's on the ground running today. You're more than, capable, willing, and able to be a part of it. And it's here, and this is how it works, and this is how it could look. And it's very healthy to do that. Yeah. So what have you got planned for the next little, like, I mean, are you a guy that retirement is in sight, or are you?
No, I feel like I'm just getting my stride. I know after 36 years, it sounds crazy, but I've always been, my dad worked 37 years at SAS Power, and he got given a package where he had to retire. Yep. And I can still remember he kind of went on into a bit of a depression almost after that, because he felt like he owned the company. Yep. Because he started there with a grade 8 education, got a lineman journeyman degree or designation, worked his way all the way up to the top of the management. He was like a head of gas and electrical construction for the whole province when he retired.
Oh, wow.
And so he felt like, what do you mean you're making more? Your numbers add up, Nels, you got to leave. Yeah. And I'm kind of in a lucky position where there's no forced retirement. Right. And as long as you have your ability and you're bringing something to the table, in my opinion, I want to stay for quite some time yet. I would like to be around for, probably the next 5 or more years at least. Yeah. And just see where it goes from there. Yeah. Well,
you're enjoying what you're doing, and you're obviously very good at it. So, I mean, why stop that? And all the respect to tradesmen and that sort of thing. But, probably be a bummer to have that conversation with the boss, and that, your hours have totaled up and the dream's over, Yeah,
my dad would have worked, I'm sure, because at the time, he started so young. He was given a forced retirement at age 57.
Really?
Yeah. And he ended up working for K-Line Construction, which they have an office out here in Emerald Park. Yeah. And that was the best thing that ever happened to him, because he worked another 10 years as a consultant, and it was a wonderful second career. Yeah. But he would have kept going till they kicked him out. He was that guy. Yeah. I'm kind of that guy too. Sure. I feel like as long as I'm bringing something to the table, then, I'm going to keep rolling. And and again, twin daughters, grade 12. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
There's some motivation there too. So, and when you also have the opportunity, Shawn, that as, time marches on, like there's no shame in like starting to disengage a little bit, still being busy and involved in the company. That's where my dad's at right now, is that he's still very, very involved. However, he's, put a team in around him that, I mean, day-to-day operations are looked after in a very, very good way. And, him and mom are able to get away for a couple months a year and head to a tropical place. And as long as he's got his laptop, he's still looking at every freaking deal that we're doing here and, following what's going on. So, it's, there are those people. You're one of those people where it's just, if it's making you happy and you're passionate about it, why would you ever stop?
And my wife's behind me 100%. She understands what makes me tick, and we have a really great relationship, and so it works out really well.
Awesome.
Fortunate.
Awesome. Jay, anything else?
I got one question, and I don't want to prolong this if you're ready to go, but I have to ask because I'm curious. So you've been in the financial world since 1987.
That's when I was hired. Yep.
So you've seen, what's this? Black Monday. You've seen 9/11. You've seen COVID. You've
housing
seen
crash.
The housing crash of 2008. You've seen interest rates at 18% in the 80s. That's something like this, right?
It's nuts.
Well, that's crazy, right?
It's nuts.
Like, I just got to ask, like, what's the biggest economic event that you have personally weathered?
Well, there's probably two. Well, there's several actually. The tech bubble was very, very interesting for sure.
What years was that? Was that like when the internet started or like post?
It was like right when anything you put like .net would go up 100%. And then of course there was nothing there. So it was a bubble.
I get you.
Up. But the ones that really stick with you though, 9/11 was really something. I was at home. My wife told me, Shawn, just so you know, I just saw on TV one of the towers in New York just went down or just got hit by an airplane. And I'm like, of course, Mr. Skeptical. Oh, honey, that must have been a movie scene or something. Like and all of a sudden, just as I say that, the second airplane hits. Mm-hmm. I'm on my way to the office. So back then, you think about this. It's 23 years ago. I was the only guy in the office at the time that had a TV in his office. I get to my office, and my office is packed. Like all the people in our whole office were in my office looking at the TV. And, clients were, of course, quite concerned what's going to happen. Turned out it was just obviously a tragedy of all sorts. But as far as the market goes, quick reaction, but really quickly infilled, quickly, because the markets are like gravity, they just carry on, Unfortunately, a lot of people lost their lives and families were ruined. So that was one that really hit. But the financial crisis, 2008, that was really scary. It was. We saw Royal Bank stock, all the bank stocks in Canada were tumbling at a level that you just can't imagine. And the amount of paper loss that was shown, was devastating. And for me personally, when you've committed your whole career to one company, to see that happen, it was pretty scary. And having clients asking me, Shawn, am I going to be okay? And not being able to having a gulp,
yeah,
and give them the, yes, you will be okay. Just hang in there, don't panic, and all that. Thank God I took some psychology classes because I'll tell you, it came in handy. I'm proud of the fact I didn't let clients panic. And I said, you know what? We're all in this together. We'll get out of this together. Just hang in there. And thank the Lord I did, because that was the right decision. Because even though I can still remember Royal Bank stock dropped all the way down to $26 a share. And now today it was at 170, and it had split sometime between the 25 and the 170. Wow. So it's kind of again, patience. Why do I like farmer clients? They're patient. They don't panic. Hardly any of my farmer clients called me during that because they just kind of go, okay. I've had drought. I've seen locusts eat my fields. I get it.
Yeah, they've seen they've weathered many storms.
Oh yeah.
But that was a very interesting time, and it was scary. And thank God that Canada had some of the strictest regulations when it comes to financial institutions and the capital that's required. So RBC, for example, it doesn't matter if it's us or TD or whoever, the amount of capital that we have to have in our life insurance companies and all our financial companies have to have as a backstop is very, very heavy compared to other places in the world. And the United States wasn't like that.
No.
If we wouldn't have seen the intervention from the government in the States the way they did, it would have went to zero. The markets would have went to a place that nobody can even imagine.
Yeah. You mean the bailout of 2008?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
The dominoes were on the table. It was over. There was way more debt than there was equity, and there wasn't enough regulation on Wall Street to kind of keep that in check. And so that's why that intervention, a lot of people that don't believe in government intervention, well, I can tell you what, I believe in government intervention.
100%.
In a case like that.
Yeah.
Well, we were talking the other day about I was asking, how can a bank go bankrupt?
Because they've lent all their paper out.
I mean, that we're protected in Canada from that.
We talked about that in the States. Even lately, there's been a couple of those where they had deposits that they took in Silicon Valley, and then they were basically putting it into the bond market, into longer term bonds. And then when interest rates from March of 22 went up 10 times, the bond market got crushed, and they got crushed. So then they were upside down. They had less equity than they had deposit. So all of a sudden, so if the clients come in and go, I want my money, okay, we got a problem here.
Yeah,
because there's only so much money, and they've lent out a lot of it. And so
that's interesting to me.
Yeah, 2 movies for you to watch. One is The Big Short.
Of course.
Yeah, have you seen it?
Oh yeah.
Okay, and have you seen Margin Call?
Oh yes.
Yes. Yeah, those are 2 great movies. I like The Big Short because they really did. They have those blips with the
guest actors that come in and they explain it in a very dumbed down way to say, this is what a CDO means. This is what mortgage-backed security means.
That's right. And subprime.
And how did that lead?
Yep.
And then they actually explain, like, people were having multiple mortgages. There was predatory lending. There was all of a sudden nobody saw this bubble that was getting created, and nobody the ratings weren't allowing the red flags to come for people to go, okay, something's happening with these mortgage-backed securities. And then like, these are experts, Shawn. These are people in your industry that did not see this. Did they see it coming, or did they just ignore it?
I think they ignored it to some degree. Even the rating agencies were negligent in some degree, because they didn't really keep their finger on, okay, they're lending out this money to someone whose house they're saying is worth this, but really is not. And they were still giving them investment grade ratings and stuff like that. That was one of the problems. Thank God, again, in Canada, super heavily regulated. Like, all our banks are so well managed, honestly. Like, and I'm biased with Royal. We're in the top 10 largest banking institutions in the world now. And that's because a lot of the other ones failed. We didn't. Like, we were well managed, and that's why we're in that position. And we just bought HSBC in Canada here, the Canadian operation. What a great merger! And that's a good example of having some deep pockets and being a well managed institution. But I think a lot of it has to do with our regulations, and Canada. We aren't sexy in that regard. Like, you won't be writing too many movies about what happens in Canada in the banking industry. But in the States, it's like the Wild West, man. Like, there's a lot going on down there. But we're pretty fortunate the way our industry is and the way it's regulated.
One last question.
No, give her, man. Yeah, absolutely.
Do you believe the CFL will be profitable and functional in the next decade?
About, a couple of weeks ago, I might have said, but one of my buddies was just at a Toronto Argonauts game, and he said the place was packed. He said and it was a great atmosphere. He said the place was packed. People were having a great time. Of course, they're winning, but still, I was surprised at that, because I remember being at the Grey Cup in '89 in Toronto when we won, and the cab driver didn't even know there was a Grey Cup in town. They're like, okay, what are you here for? For what? Oh, Grey Cup. Oh, Grey Cup. Oh, what's that, CFL? So, I think it's going to make it.
Okay.
Has there...
I'll put $100 on it?
Okay.
I haven't... I don't follow as much as I should, but I mean, it's just whatever floats your boat. Would there ever be a day that, like, the CFL just gets sold off?
I think that there's been attempts.
Really?
To purchase.
By NFL? Or is it like a Vince McMahon kind of purchase?
I think there was Dwayne The Rock Johnson was recently...
Really?
Like, he was saying, like...
Did he just Dwayne The Rock and go there and buy the CFL?
The problem is when you buy something, as we all know, someone's got to show you financial statements that say, like, this is what profit it's bringing in.
Yeah.
But it's not subsidized, so it has to be rich owners losing money or breaking even.
Yeah.
But how do you purchase something that isn't generating a decent profit?
Right.
You don't sell businesses off of what could be. I don't think. The odd one.
You got to back it up, though. Like, I mean, just a really quick blurb. Like, in our industry, and I mean, every industry, there's goodwill. Like, there's a goodwill component. And, like, that's basically what we believe Mazer Group could do in a factor. It's usually two times EBITDA or whatever. But, now we're getting real technical terms. But essentially, it's based off what we believe and what we know Mazer Group can do based on past financials,
So projections. So reasonable data-driven projections.
Right.
Fair.
Yeah. So I don't know if the CFL is showing...
I don't know.
Good.
They're not public, so we can't see their financial statements, right?
Yep.
No, they're not public, that's for sure.
I don't know if we'd want to.
No. I think it's like the old story. Nobody moves, nobody gets hurt.
Let a sleeping dog lie. Is that
Let it be.
No,
I'm happy to hear that
fun.
the Labor Day game was sold out in Regina. Like, that's good to see. Like, it usually is, but in the last few years, it's been a little bit tougher, I think, for them to get crowds. And so that's nice to see that it's back where it should be.
I think a lot of industries, just with the economy and expendable income for the average population, I just think a lot of restaurant industry, retail industry, anything that's kind of the movie industry, anything that's kind of what would you call it? A luxury.
Yep.
Even a semi-luxury.
Yep.
Going to a Rider game isn't a necessity. It's a luxury.
That's right. Yeah.
And when the economy's struggling like this, we got to get people money to get there.
Yep.
And I think that's what scares me about CFL. I shouldn't be making it sound like I'm against the product.
Yeah.
I just, with everything going on, I don't think it's going to work in their favor. And I want to see it.
Yeah.
So
Would there be government intervention there though?
nope.
No.
The last time during COVID, well, Trudeau, and I don't know much about this, but he strictly said there will be no CFL bailout because people were arguing for it. And I think, very smart government move, said, I don't know if football is our number one priority in the middle of a health and economic crisis.
Yeah.
So I think they were clear about that, and I think that set a precedent. So I don't think it's a necessity. I think healthcare and education.
Oh, that's huge. Yeah, there's no
All that
question
might
there.
be. Anyways, we're going off on a tangent. We'll cut this
That's
out.
what we're supposed to do on a podcast.
We'll cut this out.
Thank you very much, Producer Jake. Sean, thank you very much for coming today.
Oh, that's great. I really was looking forward to this, actually.
Yeah, it was.
Nice to meet you.
It was a pleasure to have you. And would you come back?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, we'll have to touch base in a little bit, and see how things are going, see where we're at, and
Let's go.
Thank you very much for coming.
Thanks for having us. I appreciate that.
All right, thanks.